The season began on the North American leg, but it has now shifted across the pond to Europe. The round in Germany saw power swing towards Alawi and Ruiz, with both taking wins. Imola is expected to provide a style of racing similar to the Nürburgring, so will they be able to keep up the momentum? We'll find out soon as we get ready to watch round 6 of the PRL LeMans series, and you'll see it all live here on the Global Sim Racing channel. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is DJ Clark. Behind the scenes is our director, Sean Crackers Ambrose, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. The Autodromo Enzo e Dino Ferrari is most well known to race fans as simply Imola. To learn a little bit more about the circuit, let's head to our track guide. Welcome to the Nürburgring. Often overshadowed by its older, bigger brother, the Nordschleife, the Grand Prix course has actually accrued quite a bit of history itself. This modern circuit. Welcome to the Autodromo Internazionale Enzo e Dino Ferrari, but most race fans know this place as simply Imola. This circuit in the northern part of Italy has seen some of the highest highs and lowest lows in motorsports history. The various tragedies that have marred the track left no choice but to alter it in the name of safety. While it originally featured mostly fast, sweeping corners, its modern 3-mile or 5-kilometer version is punctuated by tricky chicanes and incredibly technical turns. iRacing includes the Grand Prix layout and a moto version, which adds one more chicane to the front stretch. Tamburello is perhaps the most notorious of the corners for claiming the life of multi-time world champion Ayrton Senna when it was still a single breathtaking turn. Now the Triple Apexer not only offers potential passing opportunities, but catches out drivers quite frequently. While heavy braking zones are everywhere, because few places allow the cars to get up to speed, overtaking is generally seen as an exercise in frustration. As if to almost counteract this quality, the track itself is situated in a gorgeous public park and sends the drivers through the beautifully calming Italian countryside. It also includes a fair bit of elevation change in which the track is split between the higher up back half and the lower first portion. It's no wonder that this place still proves popular with drivers and fans in spite of its difficulties in history. The Tifosi keep returning each and every time the sound of engines roar among the trees, and who can blame them? Well, while Formula One has come back briefly last season, we've also had recent visits here. And DJ, unfortunately, it sounds like you've had firsthand experience of what this car combination is like.
Yeah, that's right, Joe. We were here last night, and I will tell you, multi-class racing at Imola is interesting. It is a very, very tight and twisty track. Overtaking is an absolute premium, and when you put two different classes of cars on this track, it gets very hairy very, very quickly. Now, any of the overtaking opportunities that we talk about, the best opportunities for both the GTEs and the LMP2s are going to be going down into the first real sequence of turns. Tamburello, that left chicane. We've also seen some good ability to get a run down into Tosa, the hairpin at the end of the first sector, as well as going into Ravazza, plunging down the hill. Now, where these drivers and these cars in particular are going to have to be careful, though, are really going in through Agomino-Raleigh, that tricky complex of turns 9 and 10, and also watching the curbs coming through Variante Alta. The curbs here are very, very high at points, and specifically if you're driving these LMP2s, they are not really made to take a whole lot of curb, so they've got to be very, very careful. And for these faster class drivers, they have to have their head on a constant swivel and pick the best time to make the opportunity. This is not a track where you can send a dive bomb down in the inside.
We'll watch that and see how the drivers manage it. But before that, today's race is brought to you by SimMSA. Simulation Motorsports Affinity provides many consulting services, from completely customizing simulators to managing teams, individual drivers, and complete events. They're working hard to bring everyone together at one place to support and promote sim racing internationally. Find out how you can bridge the gap between virtual and real motorsports at SimMSA.net.
The PRL Le Mans Series is also brought to you by NinjaTrader. Ready to compete against the financial markets? Supporting over 60,000 users across the globe, NinjaTrader provides award-winning trading software and brokerage services. NinjaTrader is always free to use for advanced charting, backtesting, and trade simulation. Visit NinjaTrader.com to get started with a risk-free trading simulator and start tracking your performance.
Today's broadcast is also proudly sponsored by ButtKicker. ButtKicker products add an incredible immersion and realism to any game. Feel every nuance and truly put yourself in the driver's seat. Check them out at thebuttkicker.com. Let's take a look at that championship because it's been turned around just slightly. If we start off with the driver's points here for the LMP2s, up at the top of them, it is currently Felipe Ruiz ahead by a good number of points over Herbino and Eisler. But you have to remember that Herbino has taken on quite a few penalty points. He got some more from last week, which we'll go over soon. Modoff, of course, sits in fourth, and Owen Watts sits in fifth. Apologies that have those graphics just a little bit off here. But then as we look over to the GTE Championship, up at the top, Uthman Alawi now leading the way there, 10 points ahead of Stephen Ash. But Uthman is the first driver to finally get 2 wins here in the GTEs this season. Michael Ross is also one of those that shares a win over the course of the races we've run. Russo and Montini do not. In fact, Russo's been not having the best of luck so far this season, so I'm sure he's hoping to turn that around. What about the team's championship here, DJ? Where are we sitting on those?
Well, sitting atop those LMP2 standings is Delta Sport U4K. That is Herbino, Modoff, and Watts. They currently sit second and fourth in that championship right now, according to our standings. So going to be very interesting. But right on their heels, Punta CL Racing. That's Ruiz, Eisler, and Cal Quinn. They are very, very close. This is a battle with some of the best drivers in the LMP2 field, and they are very, very close. NinjaTrader LMP2 a bit way back from them, 68 points back from Delta Sport U4K, and Final Lap Team Yellow and Torque Freak Racing rounding out your top 5, both of them a fair ways back. But if we jump over to the GTE standings, it's an interesting field as well. RSR by G Performance being led by our championship leader Uthman Alawi, sitting in with 256 points. Behind them, Frozen Speed Full Send Racing 33 points back, and their team leader in points is Stephen Ash, Alawi's closest competition in that GTE field. So the rest of those teammates really going to be trying to scramble here to get some good points haul. Behind them, Vector by RSR is 66 points back, but the battle for P3 is very close between them and Lockup Racing. And then behind, rounding out that top 5, is SRT Esport Green.
Now, for today's event, as we mentioned, we are in round 6 here, and it is going to be a 60-minute race today. The 2 different classes that can be chosen from are the LMP2s, that's the Dorlara P217, and then a variety of GTE class cars. Now, the choices have been somewhat limited by the drivers recently. It's mostly Corvettes and Porsches lately, interestingly. It's open setup, though, so they can try and tweak them to their liking. They're going to get a drive-through penalty, though, if they get 13 incidents, which can be easy to rack up when there's a lot of chicanes like there is here, or they will get disqualified if they reach 18 incident points on the track. Right now, they're fighting for some of the bonus points as we have qualifying taking place. Christoph Herbino back up on the top step, currently on provisional pole, and Michael Ross looking good here in the 67 in the lone Ford GT that has shown up today.
Well, Joe, he's not only the lone Ford GT, he is the lone non-Porsche and Corvette of the field, the only guy breaking that trend. But here we watch Herbino coming back across the line. He's putting in some really, really good times right now. He's about 4 tenths up on the rest of the field. Looks like 7 thousandths of a second off for Christoph. So you can see he is not only quick, but he is lightningly consistent.
Cal Quinn's the only one able to come close. It's still about 2 tenths between himself and Herbino. But as we mentioned, Herbino now on 20 penalty points. He had an incident with some of the GTE traffic last round. at the Nürburgring as Ross comes across. Not going to be quicker, about a 10th off that time by, but I do not see Uthman Alawi, who's currently second, out on track. So it looks like he's ducked into the pits and is going to take some fresh rubber and get another one out there. That'll be interesting. In the meantime, we check on Stephen Ash in third, and unfortunately had an off that time through. So that is not going to improve on his time.
And here comes Sean Romig across the line, not able to improve. Christian Eisler setting down his first time. Looks like that was an off track for him as well. Very, very easy to pick up here at Imola. Tyler DeZube coming across the line. That is going to count. That's going to be a 10th place for him. Here comes Ted Lowendick across the line with a 39.257. That'll put him up to 8th.
So now we look at Pisano, who is in 6th. His first lap was a 38.9 as he hugs it right close to the barriers up against the pits. He then crosses the line, and it looks like that one was a non-lap for him. So we head back to Cal Quinn, his third lap. Is this going to be any faster? It is, about a 10th quicker, but that is still off of Herbano's best, who improved it on his third lap too. He's got it down to a 29.8.
And there comes Boris Ovando, a podium place last time for Boris. He puts it in third right now. He'll be very happy with that. Rafael Russo, we talked about some of his struggles that he's been having in this season. Just a spell of bad luck. Russo able to get his way up to 10th. As here comes Mac Miller trying to cross the line. He is currently 14th, able to go a couple of tenths faster there for Miller. That'll bump him up to 9th.
We switch over to Kenny Rodriguez. Looks like he's not going to go quicker this time through. So back to Francisco Montini, and it looks like he's going to jump himself up into, well, my stuff is moving around, 4th place, and Federico right behind him actually just improved as well. So the brothers both complete the 2nd row currently.
As we can never seem to separate those two. They have very consistent pace always. Here comes DeZube coming to the line. He is all the way back in 15th right now. He is able to massively improve, though. Big jump there for Tyler. That's going to jump him up to the top 10 in 8th. Lowendick crosses the line. He is able to improve as well, but he will stay in 10th place. Herbano coming in.
So he's not satisfied with that final lap. That leaves it open for Cal Quinn, but he also is going to abandon. They get 4 laps to try and set their fastest time, but neither of them are taking the 4th and final one. Pisano does complete his 3rd and goes up to a 38.9. I believe that jumped him up to 9th place. We check on Russo, and usual to see him as far down as he is. He didn't get a lot of practice time in, and I'm not sure why, because he was well down the order. I would think he'd try to find a little bit more out there, but a 38.7 is definitely going to be an improvement. That'll get him at least to 9th.
Here comes Ricardo De Matteo across the line, one of our independent drivers in the LMP2 field. He's going to be able to improve his time by about 2 tenths. That'll bump him up to 6th as Eisler looking to set his first lap. And you talked, Joe, about it being a little bit uncharacteristically back there for Russo. This is not a track that everybody likes. It's very difficult. Eisler crossing the line.
It doesn't count as well. He missed all 4 laps. Eisler's going to be gridded at the very back of the LMP2 field. That's an absolute shocker. We go to Romig now, and a 1:39.1 for his latest lap has him in 12th.
And DeZube shutting it down there. He does not like the time that he is on, so he is going to call it an end to the Porsche. But here comes our first place driver of Michael Ross, able to improve by about 0.08 of a second. Good for Michael there. DeTulio there putting in his fastest time to get him up into 5th in that Corvette.
Now, Herbano is back out on track, and I'm not sure why, because this is an outlap, and it will be scored as an outlap, but it will still count as his 4th lap. So I'm not sure why he's come back out, other than maybe to just get some practice. We'll get across the line in time at least to put this 4th one in, but it won't really mean much here with only 15 seconds on the clock. All right, then. Well, I think that does settle our qualifying for everybody in that case. So Let's go through our starting order for today. Christoph Herbeno grabs another bonus point, which he's going to need considering his penalty points. He'll start on the pole. Felipe Ruiz starts second with Horatio Calquin in P3. Carl Modolf will be fourth. He's got Owen Watts behind him in fifth, and to that outside of the row, it'll be Ricardo Di Matteo in sixth. David Menino starting seventh, and TNC Layton will be in eighth. Raymond Day, P9. Byron Daly rounds out your top 10, and then as we mentioned, Christian Eisler will be gridded behind them, 11th and last of the field.
Michael Ross, the lone GT driver, the Ford GT driver rather, is going to be starting off in first place for the GTEs, followed by Uthman Alawi to his outside. Federico Montini is going to be flanked by his brother Francisco in third and fourth, and Alessandro Di Tullio and Boris Ovando will make up row 8. Stephen Ash will be lining up behind them in seventh place, followed by Tyler DeZube. Rafael Russo, a little bit farther down than what we're used to seeing him in there in ninth place, followed by Ted Lowendick in 10th. Row 11 will be Anthony Pisano and Sean Romig, followed by Mac Miller and Kenny Rodriguez behind them. Series organizer Jerome Bethune and Brett Barrett going to be lining up in row 13, with David Flanagan not being able to set a time.
We always get races so often here on the channel that are later in the day. The sun goes down and things cool slightly. It's the reverse today. It is actually early in the morning. It's just past 10 a.m. virtual standard time here in Italy. And the track has gone up since we first started coverage from 77 degrees Fahrenheit to now 80 degrees Fahrenheit. And I expect it will continue to climb. We have seen some cloud cover over the course of it, DJ, but as you can see from the sky, not much of it to shade them.
No, not at all. And right now, sitting about that 80-degree tach temperature, we're right at the bottom end of the sort of Goldilocks perfect zone that we like to talk about for those tires. So these drivers are going to have to be a little bit careful at the start to make sure they get proper heat into the tires before they really start attacking. But as this race goes along, they will be able to get down and really put the pressure down. But I do think what that's going to mean is that we're not going to have to worry a whole lot about tire wear. It's all going to be about pace and how to cut through the traffic ahead and behind you.
So as our LMP2s take off, we're waiting for the GTEs to also follow suit. They don't have a long pace lap around here. Now they start going, so they'll get very little time to get the tires up to temperature. Porsche pace car is out of Ravazza already. Herbeno is going to have control of the field. He's become something of a bad boy here in this Le Mans series. Let's see if he can clean it up as we get the green flag and take off down towards the start-finish line. Herbeno with a very good start over his rivals, Ruiz, Calquin, and Modolf, all coming behind him, looking to try and sort it out down into Tamburello. Looks like Calquin going to break the earliest of them and actually be challenged by Owen Watts, but they'll get through their clean along with all the others. Let's go to the GTEs.
Well, up front, it was all nice and clean, but I have to say that Francisco Montini had a horrible start. He is now all the way back into 11th place in those GTEs, but your top three running a very calm and collected race. There you can see just out of the corner of your screen there, Ross leads Alawi, leads Montini as they come through Villeneuve.
Oh, we got a wreck. It looks like Bertum involved with it, Barrett, and I think the one that initially got tipped was Sean Romig and the 71. We'll come back to that a little bit later. But sad to see some of our drivers farther down in the field not able to get a clean start to this one. Meanwhile, up and out of Aquameno Raleigh, it is still Herbeno leading Ruiz, leading Modolf for your top three as they hit Alta.
And there you see Herbeno being very, very calm on those curves. Some of the drivers in the back taking a little bit more of an aggressive line. They've got to be careful, Joe. It's very easy to damage the floors of these LMP2s, so they don't want to take too much curb, specifically in that area, and compromise the rest of their race.
This is going to be the key point of the track coming out of Ravazza. Ruiz is pretty close to the back of Herbeno. He knows he's going to get a slipstream down the front stretch. We watch from the top of Christoph as he sees the number 58 follow him. The 948 also in tow, picking up speed, but as long as this straightaway is, it is not long enough. They're going to have to brake hard into Tamburello. We're going to look at the GTEs and how this happens as well. Looks like Ross may have even broken the slipstream as Alawi has to look out behind at Federico Montini.
He does. Michael Ross able to get up a gap of a good amount there to Uthman Alawi, just under a second, but really starting to pull that out. Montini's starting to pull in on Alawi here. Behind them, everybody's staying relatively single pile, and those top three starting to pull a gap themselves to DiTullio behind them.
Montini really keeping it tucked up behind the rear wing of the 444. They accelerate out of Tosa up the hill. We hop on board with the Porsche of Federico Montini. Chasing him up towards Piratella. Not close enough to attack, mind you. But, as this corner tends to elicit mistakes, you can see very different lines between the pair of them.
Yeah, it's one of the things that you can do in that corner is there are multiple lines to go through there. One of the few times you can do that on the track as opposed to where they're coming through right now, Aquaman and Raleigh, that there is really only one good line through there. You can make a pass into Piratella, Joe. I've seen it before, but it takes a very, very brave driver.
It does typically, but Owen Watts seems to have had a problem through Ravazza. We're going to look at the replay. I think he was trying to avoid getting into the back of De Matteo here. Yeah, look at that. Nearly punching into him. And unfortunately, his evasive maneuver takes him out into the gravel.
He's going to have some ground to catch up, but good heads-up driving there from Owen to be able to keep the car pointing forward and not really creating an accident. That's going to be a lot harder to do, though, when these LMP2 drivers catch up, as we got a battle.
Yeah, that on screen was Day coming back after an off track, and Watts gains at least one spot up to ninth. Meanwhile, we've jumped up to our leaders. Urbano still about 0.8 of a second ahead of Felipe Ruiz. And it looks like Modoff is not giving up on the fight, trying to see if he can take that second place away from the 58. But he's also got the 58's teammate, Cal Quinn, behind him. The Punto CL cars are currently sandwiching Carl.
They are indeed, and this is kind of the same statistical battle we see for the team's championships, as both of these teams just absolutely stacked up at the pointy end of the field. Now, you may be wondering why these guys aren't attacking a little bit more as they draw closer and closer. And, Joe, I have to think they are just waiting this out. It's an hour-long race, and when they catch these GTEs, which will not be that far from now, they've got to be very, very careful because that will present opportunity after opportunity.
Oh. As looks like Ted Lowendick had an off track, but we got a nice battle between Alawi and Montini for second. They're coming down towards Ravazza, another place where sometimes sneak attacks can indeed happen. From on board, looking through the rear wing of Uthman. He gets close, but maybe he's setting up for here.
No, doesn't quite look like he is doing that. He's just going to be nice and calm here, coming down this long straightaway through the Variante Bassa. Sometimes there is a chicane there, but not this time very clearly. He's just going to hope he can pull up behind in the slipstream here of Alawi and try to get something happening.
Just doesn't look like it's enough. Let's duck away from this, though, because Ruiz has been holding off Carl Modoff. A few attempts at the position from the 948, but none of them stuck. Still, you can see how close he is, especially coming out of the Aquaman of Raleigh. And now they're going to fan out almost 3 wide as to his inside. He's got Horatio Calquin there. They managed to get it single file, but they are going to make contact as Calquin finds himself held up too much, taps the back of the 948, and loses lots of ground.
Yeah, just tapped the back of him there. Couldn't get the power down correctly, but Modoff really in attack mode here. I think he knows his teammate Christoph Herbeno has a great car, and he wants to play a little bit of rear gunner to him to try to get up and around him. Now, this is going to be one of his best opportunities. We saw him have a lunge last lap down into Tamburello. He is right up behind, really in the draft. Jinx out to what will be the outside of the first corner, but this straightaway very, very twisty, and he's going to have a little bit to get there.
They both hit the brakes. Neither one seems willing to give up into Tamburello, but Modoff eventually pries it away from the hands of Felipe Ruiz. So move the 948 into P2. Ruiz down to third.
Very good move there for Carl Modoff. He knew exactly where the track was going to come to him. That's one of the things that makes Imola such a great place to overtake, is that you can position the car on the outside. If you can just hold it in there, the track will come back to you. So move Modoff into that second place, but he has a 3.8 second gap to try to catch up to his teammate in front, Christoph Herbeno.
update on Sean Romig. Unfortunately, after that opening incident, he has had to call it a day. He has since DNF'd. I wonder if we've got a replay of that opening incident, since we didn't really get a good look at it. Let's see if we can pull that one up. Let's see. This involves the 71 of Romig, as I mentioned, Bertum as well. And as we take a glance at this is out of Tamburello that it happened. So this is the initial start. Obviously, car is very jumbled up. It always scares me, whether I'm in the car or out of the car on these starts, DJ, how everybody manages to keep attention on everybody else and not lose track of where everybody is.
It's so incredibly difficult because everybody trying to make up the positions right at the start. So here we go into the braking zone for Tamburello. There you see, it looks like that was Montini jumping the curb a little bit there. That forces a couple of guys wide. Romig just gets collected into the back. I think that was Bertun that hit him, and that just caused a bit of a pileup, with Romig really taking the worst damage out of all of them.
Yeah, he must have gotten hit in the corner of the car and damaged the suspension from that, unfortunately. As we take a look at our leader, Herbino, it is up to 3.5 seconds. He's really been dominating. But we need to take a look at second here in the GTEs. This is Federico Montini with an absolute train. Ovando, Vittorio, and Ash are right there.
Montini really being the cork in the champagne bottle here. These guys just ready to explode out of the back. And here comes Ovando. Ovando's going to do that same move that we saw Modov do. Go to the outside, position himself for the second part, but they make contact. Ovando onto the grass, tries to hold it, and he's off into the kitty litter.
He's just going to take the escape route across, and unfortunately that'll give him a slowdown penalty, so everybody else is going to have to try and work their way around him as he serves that. He will lose a position. Montini retains his second place. Now, did they make contact, or did he just get squeezed?
If there was contact, Joe, I think it may have been a little bit of net code, so I can't say for sure. It looked like the way the car reacted, there may have been a hair of contact, but it didn't look physical on the screen.
Up and through Piratella. Vitulio now has himself into third with that, and that allows Stephen Ash to catch up quite a bit. He wasn't quite on the gearbox of those three when all that began. Let's see if we can make good use of it once they come around to Ravazza, though. Still on the upper back half of the course before they once again find themselves onto the long front stretch. Look at them all take as much as they can out of Alta and down towards the final two corners.
And Joe, I love what Stephen Ash is doing here. He is playing the mental game that we talk about so often as you see him line up there into Ravazza 1. He's coming back onto the overtaking line ever so slightly to present a moving picture in Ovando's mirrors. He is trying to psych out Boris. He knows Boris has made a mistake once already, and he may be a little bit gun-shy, and so Ash is just trying to provoke him into making one more mistake and allowing him to pick up that fourth place.
Of these four, Alessandro and Boris are the closest two, but nobody's close enough, it seems, to try and attack one another. They're going to stay single file into Tamburello, at least for this time. Incredibly, we've only gone a little more than 10 minutes into this race. It's felt like a lot more than that has been happening out there, as we've had plenty of battles and even a few incidents already.
Well, that seems to be what Imola always seems to offer up. No matter what series you are trying to race this track in, it is always going to throw up a couple of fantastic situations as we watch out the back here as these drivers work their way through Piratella. And Joe, I have to tell you, the LMP2s have officially caught the back of the GT field.
I was just noticing that myself. Herbino coming up to the first one, which is going to be Ted Lowendick. Actually, scratch that. They already passed Barrett, who was the first one. But we ride on board with Christoph Herbino as he tries to navigate his way through. Looks like he's given plenty of space down into Acqua Minerale as Lowendick sees him coming. Holds off to the left side of the track, makes it an easy pass. Up next is going to be Kenny Rodriguez, and then things get a little bit thicker.
Yeah, that's when the danger really starts to come into play. When you're dealing with passing a slower class car one-on-one like Herbino just did there, it is quite easy to do. But when you start to get into 2, 3, 4 car trains, that is where you have to grow really concerned. Those GT drivers are having a battle of their own, and they don't want to give any quarter to the driver ahead or behind them as, that was Herbino getting very loose coming out of Rafonso.
He holds it, though, and he hasn't lost too much time in all of this. It's still 3.5 seconds. He bled a little bit, but that buffer that he built up in the first couple laps have come in handy. Doesn't catch Flanagan and Bertoum before he gets to the Tamburello chicane. This may cost him a little bit more time now that he's going to have to go through in some of the twistier bits of the track.
Yeah, and really, honestly, starting right here with Villeneuve, this is the part of the track you don't want to see any lapped cars. There you see Herbino going down to the inside of Tosa. That's nice and easy, but from the moment you exit Tosa all the way up to getting into Variante Alta, you really don't want to have to be making a pass through there, as it is very, very difficult to do with the closing speeds of these LMP2s.
That was costly. Modov's got it down to 2.8 seconds, so another 6 or 7 tenths that he's peeled away from Herbino. But now he's got to navigate all the same traffic, so it could swing right back up into Alta. We're watching Herbino go by, and then there is Modov coming towards the camera and then braking. He gets by all of them, but indeed it does hand a little bit back. It's up to 3.1 now between himself and the 92.
Well, Joe, we love to see it. We love to say it, but the traffic giveth and the traffic taketh away. That's exactly how you got to do it. But we're going to jump back to this battle with Ovando.
Oh, he's got a fantastic run, but no defense from the Tullio. In fact, seems like a little bit of early braking from Boris. The 22 remains in 4th place. That was probably one he was taking note of, I'm sure. Seeing what the draft can do and what a good one, how far back he has to be to effect a pass. This is the same battle that we were watching before, all for P2. Here we've got our GSRC live time and in scoring at GSRC.tv and with his RPMs and gear shifts right for you to see. Let's see how one of our race winners this season handles such a difficult track.
Wide there on the exit of Piratella, but nice job. And here you go, Joe. This is the hardest corner, I will argue, almost anywhere in the world. You see getting down to 2nd gear there, doesn't want to drop all the way to 1 to worry about speeding those tires, but then getting back up here and stay on board. You can see it, boom! You can see just how much those GTs can take of those curves, really trying to maximize lap time.
And this is Porsche versus Corvette. Boris, who we're on board with the German marquee, and the Tullio, and the car ahead, the American marquee. So, as they come onto the front stretch once again, what did Boris pick up from that last advance? It looks like he's at least pretty close once again. Already up to 145, 150 miles an hour as they fly by the pit lane. Is he going to have enough? It doesn't quite look like it to me.
Doesn't. That Porsche just seems like at the top of the limit. It doesn't quite have the bite off the line that it needs to get. And watching on board with Ovando there, looks like he's really struggling a little bit on corner exits, specifically coming out of both ends of Ravazza. You saw just how much he was shaking as he goes wide there, and that's going to allow Ash to get by him.
Another mistake of his own making, and Boris hands over a 2nd position within about 10 minutes. And 22 now gets demoted down to 5th with that. And it looks like Herbino is closing up behind. Meanwhile, whoa, great battle on screen. This is Watson Daly getting down to the inside. Daly trying to make the overtake, but Watts says no.
Good defense and a good late-breaking maneuver there for Daly, trying to take that look, but Owen Watts holding his line while giving him just enough room. They fan out a little bit coming through Piratella. Now they're going to dive down into Aqua Minerale. You can see it. Watch the car in front. See if there's any little mistake. No, it looks like Watts absolutely nails it, but Daly gets a little bit better mid-corner speed through there, so he's going to be close through Alta. Now watch to see if he can get the run here. He may have a run into Ravazza. he is closer. He is gaining very quickly.
Yeah, it's not a very long straight, though. They're going to hit the braking for this downhill double left-hander pretty quickly, and indeed doesn't poke his nose out. They are coming up on more GTE cars, though. I see Mac Miller up in front of them. The question is, are they going to catch him before they get to Tamburello? And did Ash just get by DeTullio? I think he did. I think this happened into the Tamburello chicane. There it is right there. Just outbrakes him down the inside and makes it look textbook.
You've seen guys do it around the outside there, Joe, and Stephen Ash saying, you know what, I want to do this in that textbook way. Like you said, great move from him. He is up to third place. He's now going to be setting his eyes on Federico Montini ahead of him. It's only 1.6 seconds up the road, and the way Stephen Ash has been driving here today, I have to say that I think that's certainly doable.
For our neutral viewers, though, it looks like all this traffic from the LMP2s has split up the fight, unfortunately, for that second place. But if you're a fan of Federico Montini, or if you are Federico Montini, this has been good news. He's got about a second and a half back to Stephen Ash through all of this. Ovando has caught up, though. Must have had a bad run through Alta. Alessandro could have himself been checked up by those LMP2s. Let's see if Boris can finally get one back from what he's lost.
Once again there, Joe, that exit off of Ravazza 2 just not looking like it's suiting Ovando's car at this moment. It really looks like he is struggling to get that car to grips with him. He's able to close up here in the draft, but now slowing down for Tamburello. Faster cars coming up behind them. Oh, the bags exit for DeTullio. That's going to give Ovando a little bit of room. Ovando runs wide. Is he going to look? Coming to Villeneuve. There's a little bit of contact. He can't make it thanks to the LMP2. That's Menino getting by.
Almost looked like DeTullio was just holding the outside, and Ovando, who had the run, just was not positioned in the right place. He couldn't go anywhere with it and had to back out. But we've seen now, like you said, it seems like in a straight line that 22 isn't that quick. I can't tell if it's from damage that he got from his couple off tracks or if he just didn't take enough wing out of it.
Well, the natural instinct when you're coming around here at Imola is to go for a high downforce setup, but ooh, good run there through Acqua Minerale for Ovando. The natural instinct is to take that high downforce setup to maximize your speed really through the second and third sectors of this track. But the truth of the matter is that your only chance to overtake is on the front straightaway, and there you need straight line speed.
Eisler is the one that we're seeing having to try and find his way through. Oh, and he takes the apex away from DeTullio, who gets shoved off course, not physically, but has to take evasive action. So Boris will indeed get that fourth position.
He will indeed, and there you see DeTullio under fire now from Tyler DeZube, coming up very, very quickly, splitting the difference in LMP2, but they're going to drag race down into Tamburello, but it looks like that DeTullio's got ahead of DeZube here for the moment.
Alessandro is not going to be happy about that one, but I can kind of understand. Eisler, I was about to report, had moved his way up to sixth, which is impressive coming from dead last of the field, and he's got a little ways to go to his next car, but it's not over yet. Meanwhile, the battle that we've been watching with Watts has now switched over to being between himself and De Matteo. And I think, yeah, Eisler up in front of him is kind of involved in this too, it seems.
Yeah, and there you see, that's the tricky area when you're trying to come around. Oh, contact with Montini.
Federico gets turned. He's out of second place, and Owen Watts, unfortunately, was the culprit to send him spinning. Stephen Ash moved up into second with that one. Here's the replay.
Good angle here. This is on board. Oh, right into the back goes Owen Watts into Montini. I think Watts just didn't anticipate the braking that Montini had to do, getting checked up there a little bit. There we see him there. this is Federico, and that is his brother, Francisco, behind him. Francisco having a little bit of rear wing damage from what I can tell.
Yeah, they both had problems during this race, and what do you know, as we keep mentioning, they always seem to find each other somehow. Well, this is not where they wanted to be in 9th and 10th, and both of them are going to take early pit stops as Raymond Day, also in front of them, has blown his engine. Now, what has happened here? I'm trying to see. I think this was a downshift issue from what I can tell. I don't think he hit anything.
That is very unexpected, Joe. These LMP2s are normally built to be relatively tanks. I have to think he was maybe trying to conserve his brakes a little bit, just trying to use engine revs to go down and over-rev the engine one too many times. But that 77 smoking a whole bunch like a midsummer campfire right there.
Okay, so I think, I'm guessing he has an H-pattern shifter on his rig, because these cars in real life are sequential, but he seemed to blow it up upshifting. Well, in this case, I'm guessing that he meant to upshift and wound up downshifting.
We will have to ask some people about that, but I think your instinct is right. Is the only way that you can really blow an engine in these prototypes or a lot of the single-seaters on the iRacing services if you have a manual gearbox and miss a gear, or you're doing celebratory donuts at the end. I've done that more once.
That's a good way to blow an engine, though. No engineer to yell at you for ruining equipment. Now, when did Modoff get this close? It's 1 second. We're going to watch from Carl's perspective, and I'm checking to see. I'm not seeing any traffic that they've been through for quite some time. I think this is a little bit of sheer pace.
I think it is too. Carl Modoff just having the bit between his teeth here, working his way up. That's I believe Francisco Montini there ahead of him, that he's working his way around. But yeah, he's absolutely closed that gap up. It is now just hovering over a second. A little bit of oversteer coming out of the Rante Alta there. But I think Modoff once has something to prove here.
I can imagine so. Carl is one of the drivers still looking for a victory this season. Just hasn't seemed to click with these LMP2s like he did the GTE cars in the past. He loses a little bit of time, though, coming out of Ravazza. It was at 0.8 of a second, and it is climbed up to about 1.3 seconds, unfortunately. Urbano, in the meantime, actually just set the fastest lap of the race.
So we're going to jump back here to, though, our GTE leader, Michael Ross. That Ford GT running around. He has got himself about an 8-second gap back to Ash, driving a very, very clear and concise, consistent race for Michael. Now, remember, last time out, he was battling up near the pointy end of the grid when he ran into fuel issues. So rest assured, he is going to be watching that fuel gauge very, very closely here tonight.
Everybody tends to embrace what the other person is doing. Sometimes it pays to dare to be different. Michael Ross seems to be reaping that reward. Also brave of him to take a Ford to Ferrari territory here.
It's a bit... as we're going to go here with Bertum and Lowendick, as this battle's starting to heat up. That is Lowendick chasing down Bertum. We watch out of the rear wing of Jerome Bertum's car. This is the battle for P10 right now. Lowendick getting a great run here. He's going to go to the outside, but backs off a little bit, just trying to force Bertum into a mistake. But Bertum, the wily veteran, a little bit too heads up for that, able to keep it on the road, and Lowendick loses out on a few tenths.
He's got some pace to try and challenge, though, as we watch from his helmet cam coming up towards the Tosa hairpin. Getting close to the halfway points so far. We have seen a couple pit stops, and we've got a second pit stop. Federico Montini is in again. Is this a drive-through, potentially?
At it right now, Joe. It's
nope, he's stopping the stall.
Yeah.
But it's quick though. It's an in and out. That's not something that looks like a penalty though. Usually the drive-through is just a literal drive-through. So I don't know what's going on there with number 5, but he's now been in pit lane twice, and we're just hitting the halfway mark.
I wonder if that was an issue where he thought that he may not have had enough fuel and figured it was just faster to come in and try to top off right now to try to avoid some traffic. But we're going to go up to Uthman Alawi right now, who is catching Tyler DeZube in 5th. Hand over fist.
Remember, we saw Alawi starting, of course, a little bit higher than this, and unfortunately down in 6th position. This is looking like it's going to be a bit of a rough day for the 444 once again, especially after he just took 2 wins. The bad news for him is that the 2 cars directly behind him in the points are the ones in 1 and 2 right now.
Yeah, this is unfortunately sort of the story we've seen out of Uthman for most of the season. It's really boom or bust with him. He is either scrapping or absolutely dominating a win here, but just not able to get everything together, it looks like.
Yeah, Alawi started on the front row, and he's not the only one up at the front that's not been having a day that's looked like his qualifying, because we have to remember that the second row was fully the Montini brothers as well, and one of them is currently last on the track, and the other is still running down in 13th. As we watch Uthman continue to try and chase down DeZube, can he manage to overtake that number 13 down in Tamburello this time? He's got a good run. The slipstream helping him get alongside. He's good on the brakes down into the first chicane. And that is going to be P5 for the 444.
It's a good move there from Uthman, but DeZube trying to fight back here on the exit of Tamburello. Doesn't look like he exactly has the closing speed. You know, Joe, I think Tyler DeZube there recognized Uthman had a little bit more speed and didn't fight him too hard. Looks like he actually braked a little bit early going down into Tamburello, so good heads up there from Tyler. But definitely keeping it close here as they climb the hill outside of Tosa.
Now, I looked over and I noticed that Modoff got within half a second of Urbano into Tamburello this time. So he continues to chop away at this 92's lead. Question is, even though he can get to the back of him, can he manage to overtake? I think that's going to be the harder task.
I most certainly think it is, and they've got a nice clean bit of track in front of them. The next GTE ahead is Mac Miller, about 6-7 seconds up the road. So for Modoff, it's really now or never time, but Joe, riding on board with him there, you can see how squiggly that car is coming out of the corners. I have to think, based off those lap times, that he may be running a setup that's a little bit lighter on downforce. He's able to catch up very well behind Christoph, but not able to get the power down out of the corners.
Oh, this is where he needs that traction coming out of Ravazza. Let's watch and see how the car behaves off of the second left-hander. Looked decent that time, but the numbers tell a different tale. Remember, I said it was half a second. It's back up to 1 second between himself and our leader.
Yeah, and he was able to keep all 4 tires pointing forward, but just a hair of opposite lock to keep that car pointing in the right direction. There you see him going through Tamburello, and on the exit, able to keep it a little bit more clean. Mac Miller looks like he's going to slow down Urbano ever so slightly through Villeneuve.
Stephen Ash has had a major problem. He is off the course, and I think he may have made a little contact with the wall. He's back on now. This is out of Tosa. There it is right there. Oh, he's trying to catch it, Oh, wow. Really good job to keep that thing from heading towards the concrete.
That is a driver that knows how to do it. We're going to go on board with him here. Watch this. Oh, look at that wheel. He just keeps it perfectly, gets it pointed the right direction, applies the exact amount of brakes. Brilliant car control, albeit in error from Stephen Ash.
Yeah, and that hands second place away to, of all people, Boris Ovando once again. So many mistakes we've seen from second to fifth means that Michael Ross now has 12 seconds over everybody else out there as we watch Ash come back at Alawi in front of him. Utman up to fourth from the mistake we saw from Steven. Is he going to have to hand that one back? Doesn't look like it, at least.
No, not at this moment, but as we tick under 28 minutes to
sorry, we got to go to our leaders. Sorry, Herbino got held up, and Modoff is up beside him looking for the overtake, and he's got it done. Was that traffic? Herbino was very slow down the front stretch.
I believe it was. We're going to watch this really set up. That's Anthony Pisano ahead of Herbino. He just catches him out a little bit bad coming out of Ravazza there, and Modoff does a brilliant job to pick up Pisano's draft and then get into the draft of Herbino. That's all that is, Joe. It's a little bit of a holdup off of Ravazza and just a mega slipstream, and brilliantly executed by Karl Modoff.
Great opportunistic move from the 948, puts him into the lead for the first time in this race. We still have pit stops to go. Ooh, as he slides out of Aqua Minerale, though, Herbino sees it and is right on his tail. It looks like he's going to choose not to try and overtake. They got to wait patiently behind Dezube coming off of Alta. But I was going to say, I wonder if Herbino is now having to think strategy, thinking, I got to try and leapfrog him and get this one back.
He very well might be. He'll be looking at strategy and coming into the pits, and he'll be looking at strategy of those cars ahead, right ahead of him. That is that battle that we were following. That is Ash and Alawi that Modoff is working his way around right now. And now Herbino is going to be hoping for the same thing. He got a little bit of a draft off the back of Ash. He's not going to be close enough, I think, to close up behind Herbino, but that's what he needs to be doing, looking to see where a pick can be set and he can get around.
Yeah, cost him a little bit of time, so he goes down to 0.6 of a second behind Karl Modoff. Looks like our first taker of the LMP2s is going to be Horatio Calquin, at least for an official stop. The 666 down on the lane. Don't expect tires, of course, with this being only an hour race. But the temperatures have continued to climb. It's now 85 degrees Fahrenheit on the track surface. That's 5 degrees up since the beginning of this event.
And there you see going by him, that's Mac Miller, the first of your GTEs to make a pit stop in what we would consider a normal cycle. Now, as you mentioned, with the heat, what that's going to do, Joe, is they're not taking tires, so they're not fresh. These tires are still going to be hot. Being stationary for that long, they will start to cool down a little bit. So now, with it being 85 degrees, that is right about in that Goldilocks zone.
Meanwhile, our leaders still having to weave around traffic. They're coming onto that front stretch right now, so Calquin will stay on the lead lap, but not by a huge margin.
No, he won't. He will, rather, sorry. And he will be happy about that, as a lot of these drivers, there's a lot of pride in trying to stay on that lead lap, so Horatio will be very happy to stay on the lead lap. We'll have to see what happens here, Joe. I have to think that the overcut may be the way to go, but so much of that and where you're able to make up time on the track is dependent on where you catch traffic. If you come out in the wrong area on an out lap, it can ruin you, and if you can catch a good, clean in lap, it can make or break your race.
That makes me wonder if that's why Horatio came in, was to try and avoid some of the traffic. One of our best battles currently is just behind this group. You can see them there coming through Tosa. That's Alawi in the number 444, and Ash behind him, who we're looking at, in the number 11. They come up towards Piratella. Ash a little bit too far back, but as we've seen, the traffic can disrupt things in a heartbeat.
It most certainly can. And remember, this is all a result of Stephen Ash's error coming out of Tosa. And so that is what he is trying to fight against right here. The other thing that maybe we can take into consideration from Stephen Ash's perspective, well, this isn't a track like necessarily Daytona where you're worried a lot about fuel saving and you can do a whole bunch of it. You can do a decent amount down the straightaway, but we've got Herbino into the pits.
So there goes our second place driver. He is trying to pull some tricks over on Modoff. Will Modoff respond next time through? We're continuing to watch the fight between Alawi and Ash, who got a great run off of the final corner. Stephen Ash, who sacrificed second place by dipping a wheel off into the grass, is going to try and get at least one of those spots back. Big defensive move from Alawi all the way to the inside. Now he drifts back to the racing lane, but he outbrakes himself. And Utman Alawi, unfortunately, is going to give it up with ease. Ash up to fourth. Herbino, in the meantime, taking his pit stop, is going to be joined by David Menino just as he gets ready to leave now. And that is a very good stop compared to the likes of Cal Quinn, who had 26 seconds, 21 for Christoph. Menino now taking his service.
And there you see Ricardo De Matteo also coming to a rest in the pit lane. It looks like we also have David Menino, Byron Daly, and Tienside Layton all coming in here. So a lot of these LMP2 drivers choosing to make their pit stops on lap 24. I would imagine that Modoff, Ruiz, and Eisler are going to be coming in within the next lap or two.
Modoff is coming towards that pit entry. Let's see if he follows this time. Is he coming in? Yes, he is. There goes the 948. It's a big gap back to the next car down. So let's turn our attention to the man he's been racing against, Christoph Herbino, who is in Puritella currently. That's how long these pit stops take, because remember, he was not racing that far behind Karl Modoff. So unless he's caught a lot of traffic, we expect that he should come around at least near to the 948.
And Karl Modoff at rest in his box. Now, Herbino's stop was 21.7 seconds. So get your calculators out there. You can see it. The gap between the two was about a half a second when he dove into the pits. So that's what we're going to be watching. Herbino making his way through Ravazza. He's held up there. That's going to hurt him. And a mega lap from a mega out from Modoff. He's able to take about 2 or 3 tenths out of it. I think Modoff is still going to have the advantage here, but it's going to be close.
Just getting by Ted Lowendick. Herbino now has clear track, but Modoff is out and moving. And he is going to stay ahead of Christoph as the time settles out. It looks like Modoff did gain a little bit in it. It's up to 1 second, whereas before it was slightly under a second.
So that is that ability of just 0.2 of a second in the box, faster than Herbino, pulling out that gap. I also think that lap traffic of Ted Lowendick slowing down Herbino hurt him ever so slightly. Now with track temperatures at that 85 degrees by about this point, I would say Karl Modoff's tires are back up to temperature, so they are going to be on equal footing from here on out, and it's just a matter of driving.
20 minutes left to go. A third of the race remains here at Imola for round 6 of the PRL Le Mans series. Herbino put it on the pole, but he unfortunately got held up a little bit by traffic. Modoff pounced, took the lead away. Herbino's tried an alternate strategy. That hasn't worked. Now he's got to do it on track. Does he have the speed to do so is the big question mark.
Well, and Joe, watching Christoph Herbino here, I really think he is starting to push that Dallara LMP2 very hard. The tail of the car getting very squiggly coming out of Alta. Both of the drivers there crossing over onto the grass on the outside of Ravazza too. But I think Herbino is hungry here. He's getting that gap down as much as he can. Got it down to about 0.9 of a second right here, so he is pushing.
This is actually one of our closest battles right now. Only other fight that we have is between Menino and Cal Quinn. I'm keeping an eye on that in case that gets any tighter. But as we pay attention to our two leaders in the LMP2s, It has been an epic fight, with one driver looking for his first win, the other looking for his fourth out of 6, but has been guilty of a few transgressions along the way. Granted, I think the 92 has so far been so good.
I was going to say, I think more important to Christoph at this point than a race win, although let's never discredit the importance of a race win, is just having a good, clean race. You know, you get into those sort of bad cycles. Everybody talked about it, for example, with Roman Grosjean when he first came into Formula One and had that run of bad races, obviously getting the one race ban after the accident at Spa, that you need to just sort of take a step back and recalibrate your brain and calm yourself down a little bit. And a good, clean race like this that is very competitive from Christoph Herbeno is going to do exactly that.
Here we go. A few more drivers in for the GTE's Ash and Russo. Let's not forget, Pisano and Miller have both taken pit stops, scheduled pit stops, so they are done. Are they going to be able to come out near to Ash and Russo as their strategy worked? Looks like Steven's going. Now we watch Russo and his Corvette, the 18, waiting for the fuel to finish up. And it's a long way to the exit cones here at Imola. You can see, even once they get past the garages, they have to wait before they are allowed to accelerate away.
And there you see him getting back onto the loud pedal and back onto the straightaway. He is going to come out directly ahead of that battle we were mentioning earlier between David Menino and Horatio Calquin. So they are going to catch Ash very, very quickly here. And you never want to be a slow GTE coming out of the pits when there's a good battle behind. Ash tries to get out of the way, but it's going to slow up Menino.
Could be the pick that he's looking for. No, looks like Calquin is actually going to outbrake himself, locking him up into Tosa. Ash, unfortunately, being the one that's sort of stuck having to let them by as he sits down in 7th. Eventually, Calquin zips around that Porsche. But the damage has been done, going from being right on the bumper of Menino to suddenly 0.8 of a second behind. Up at the front, Urbano is not giving up on it. He's got it down to 0.4 of a second now.
He's really putting in the quick times here, Joe. He was about 0.2 of a second faster than his teammate on that last lap. Looks like the car's a little bit more contained under him here, not nearly as much counter steer on the exit of the corners, so he is coming on strong to Karl Modolf.
As that's happening, Utman Alawi has pitted, so has Tutilio. In fact, both of them appear to be exiting the pits along with Tyler DeZube. You can see them coming out now. Where's the drivers they were challenging? Stephen Ash approaching from behind is going to be way too far behind, unfortunately. So looks like Tutilio is going to be our highest pitter thus far in this GTE class.
He is, and we just heard over the radio that Michael Ross is going to be coming in this lap, so that's going to be the battle. The gap between the two of them looks like it's about 40, let's call it 52, 53 seconds between the two, so we'll have to keep an eye there. Here comes Ross.
Our leader pits, and our second place driver, Boris Ovando, will follow suit. The last two of our GTE cars, we needed to seek their fuel and then be on their way to finish off round 6 today in the PRL Le Mans series. The Ford pauses to top up. I expect he'll probably retain the lead considering how big it was when he came in.
Yeah, there's Tutilio coming out of Variante Alta right now, and you can see Ross even faster in the pits. He is going to keep that mega lead all to himself, Joe.
Okay. So as Boris and Ross are back out, they will not exchange positions. Ross is your leader. Ovando is in second. And the third place driver, Sandro, is just now heading by the timing line, so he's well back of Boris and not a threat today.
Yeah, no, he's not. He is about 8 seconds back of Boris Ovando. Boris, of course, is about 9 seconds back of the man on your screen, Michael Ross. So that GT top field very much separating out.
Is indeed, but our LMP2 field has a few tight battles still left to give us. Modoff versus Herbino. This is the one that we want to watch. And they're getting held up by Rodriguez and Bertum, which is a fight for position down towards the bottom of the GTEs. Modoff, is he going to fall victim to the same thing that Christoph did? It's given a decent run to the 92 as he weaves in and out of the GT cars, trying to pick up as much slipstream as he can. It is not going to pay off. He does not get closer.
That was really heads-up driving from Karl Modoff there, Joe. You saw the way he got past Rodriguez and then immediately tucked back into the draft of Berthum, not trying to leave himself in clean air for a millisecond longer than he needed to, and it clearly worked right there. He is keeping that gap at about half a second and just doing everything he can to keep his very fast teammate, Christoph Herbino, behind him.
So how nice will they play, especially since Karl has yet to win one this season, but at the same time, his teammate needs to try and regain the points lead and needs as many as he can possibly get with the mountain to climb after he's lost a few because of penalties. And we are getting information that they have been directed to play nice here. So Christoph can't, unfortunately, get any more penalty points. Definitely doesn't want to get penalty points for running into his own teammate.
No, that is the cardinal sin of motorsport, Joe. If you run into your teammate, that is a one-way ticket to the commentator's booth, as they like to say. But here you see Christoph still trying to go. They're going to play nice, but that doesn't mean that Christoph isn't going to try to make a move if it presents himself, if it presents one to him. So he's not going to make a late-breaking, heavy dive move down into turn one here. But if there is a mistake ahead from Modoff or something presents, you can bet your bottom dollar that Christoph's going to go for it.
I'm pretty certain you're right. And we have talked to Karl many times, and he's not one to just sit by when he thinks a whiff of a win is on the cards. He knows how to play the points game, but right now the points game for him is gain as many of those as possible. They go by on the inside of Ted Lowendick, both of them losing a little bit of grip offline, trying to wheel these cars past the Porsche. This allows Christoph Herbino to, of course, gain on him, get it down to about 0.3 of a second. And here's one of the Montinis, Francisco, in front of them at a very awkward place because they're going to catch him right as they come up to Alta. Modoff breaks early and does not try to overtake yet.
Well, and Joe, I think this is where that playing nice is going to come into consideration. To me, if I'm reading that message, that means there will be no passes between Piratella and Variante Alta, all of which are very difficult passes to make in those areas of the track. If Herbino's going to try to do it, he's got to do it into Tamburello, into Villeneuve, into Tosa, or down into Ravazza.
I think I agree with you on that one. Right now, not going to get the chance into Tamburello. Modoff well clear of that number 92, at least for the time being. Out through that first chicane towards Villeneuve. The traffic has not been as bad this race simply because the number is slightly down today. In fact, we only have 25 cars left that are still running. We've lost Federico Montini, Raymond Day, and Sean Romig, but 25 of the 28 starters are still going.
Which, Joe, I think it really is a testament to this PRL Le Mans series. The level of driving in here is absolutely incredible. Average strength of field here, looking at about 4,000 iRating. It's just an incredibly remarkable field and talent all the way up and down.
And as we've seen, the race control is honestly not in any mood to see reckless driving. Drivers can make mistakes, but if you find yourself doing something egregious, then they will, of course, hand out those penalties. It will affect your championship. And sometimes, in some cases, we have seen drivers banned for a race or two. As we watch them come out of Ravazza, Urbano just struggling now. It seems like maybe this is the virtual wake of the car ahead. Well, I shouldn't say virtual wake, the aero wake coming off the car ahead. As we saw Modov have trouble to try and get up close to Urbano as well. You mentioned that the instinct tends to be to try to put a lot of wing in it. I wonder if that's what we're seeing here.
I think you may be actually right in that assessment there, Joe. You know, we think of Imola traditionally as a very twisty, tight track, but the truth is that a lot of the corners are deceptively fast. Even in these LMP2s, you're very rarely down into first gear for any of these corners. You want to keep it in second because that's where the natural rev range lies. And so following behind with that dirty air, you know, there's not nearly as much downforce on these LMP2s as there is, say, an LMP1 prototype or even a lot of single-seaters that you see. But there are a lot of wings and strakes, and they need clean air to function properly, and getting that slight bit of disruption can just throw the car off.
Speaking of throwing the car off, Urbano not finding traffic exactly where he wants it, and it's back up to almost a second and a half behind Karl Modov now. Now that Karl's got the clean air, he seems to be off like a shot. He can, in fact, call the shots on the overtakes with the lap traffic, sees them coming, tries to find the safest way through instead of diving by at the first opportunity as we watch him come down the front stretch. Nobody in front of him, and only 7.5 minutes left to go. This will be the first win in quite a while for Karl.
And it is well deserved. He really, really timed his moves to absolute perfection. Didn't try to set anything too crazy over the line. Just drove a good and consistent race here. And Joe, look at that gap. He's got it up to 2.8 seconds over Urbano.
Is that more traffic, or did Urbano just make a mistake? I wasn't watching him. I'm going back to check to see if he had some sort of error. I didn't see any sort of off track. Oh, he hit the curb really hard through Tamburello. Let's take an onboard coming into that first corner of the 92. In fact, I think he's going to get almost some air with how hard he clobbered this thing. You warned about this at the top of the show.
Exactly. These LMP2s, the suspensions are not built for a lot of damage. Oh, big chunk out of that little curb on the inside. Completely unsettles the car. And with that, Joe, I would not be surprised if he picked up a little bit of under tray damage, maybe even suspension damage, although these LMP2 suspensions are built to withstand a good amount. They just don't like the curbs, and they will unsettle the car if you go over.
Well, we'll keep an eye on his pace. We know this lap is not going to be as quick. I think the next one or two are going to be the most telling. It's still holding at about 2.5, so it doesn't seem like he's losing too much since that happened early on in the lap, and that has stabilized to a degree. This one looks a lot cleaner down through Tamburello. Let's give a quick look then, now that we got a chance, over to the 67 of Michael Ross. The lone Ford GT is 9.5 seconds ahead of Boris Ovando. Boris, who won the opening round, has been wanting another victory, but I'm not sure if one is on the cards here at Italy at least, but this will be a continuance of what he finally did back at Nürburgring, which was get back onto the podium once again. And the second place will be one step higher than what he was before, so at least it is in a good direction.
Exactly. Boris has just really had a string of bad luck this year. After winning that first round out, he had 2 DNFs, finally got himself back onto the podium last week. And unless my eyes deceive me, he will be picking up a bonus point as he has set the fastest lap of the race in that GTE field, pipping Michael Ross to that title by about 0.08 of a second.
I believe you are correct. I don't see anybody faster currently. So, but But we are waiting for these last 4 minutes. You never know. If someone like Ross or Ash is really motivated, they could try and take that away from him. Meanwhile, Christoph is just behind our third place driver, Stephen Ash. He's going to let him through, but again, looked like he cost him just a little bit of time as he had to navigate around him through the Tamburello chicane. Where is Modoff? Okay, there's Modoff up in front of him. 3.5 minutes to go. I think we're going to be 2 to go at the line.
I think that's about right. And Herbino has been able to reel that gap in, despite looked like a little bit of a slow up there behind Ash. He's been able to pull that gap down to about 1.7 seconds. So clearly no major damage to that car from going over the curb. The loss in time we saw just as a result of the error of taking too much in.
Indeed. Down into Ravazza. They're running almost exactly 1:30 around here. So if it's under 3 minutes, which happens now, indeed, it is going to be 2 more laps that they will cycle around here at Imola. That's all Modoff has to survive, and it can finally be on the top step of the podium again.
It'll be a very welcome relief for Karl Modoff, who has played second fiddle a lot of this season, but putting in a great drive here today. That is Boris Ovando ahead of him. Quick dispatch on the exit of Tamburello. Now he's got a good long gap of about 8 seconds up the road to our GTE leader of Michael Ross.
Checking to see, I believe Modoff does have the fastest lap bonus as well right now, so that'll certainly help him. Felipe Ruiz, remember, coming into this race was our championship leader. Herbino, who is tied with Eisler, looking like he is going to finish ahead of Ruiz, so that's good news for the 92 there, because he will make inroads on trying to cut down that 21-point gap. But the bad news is that Modoff is in 4th, and he's only 26 points behind Felipe Ruiz. And with 4 rounds left after this one, that means he's starting to chop away.
He really is. And that is Michael Ross that he will be coming up to. But to expand on that point standings a little bit more, this is also going to be mega for Delta Sport U4K. Herbino and Modoff's team, this 1-2, if my numbers are correct, are going to put them above their rival of Punto CL Racing, as that is Ruiz's team, but his teammates of Eisler and Cal Quinn are not really close enough to do anything in that points.
Over on the GTE side, it's interesting because Ash and Ross are having a good day. Ash, though, I guess might be debatable on that. I feel like he probably would say he's thrown away a few points. And we're riding on board with our leader, Ross, who sits 3rd in the points right now, so he's going to collect valuable inroads on Ash and our points leader, Alawi, who's down in 5th right now. Another one that handed things away today. So the 444 is going to watch that scant 10-point lead start to disappear a little bit.
Well, and there, as you watch Uthman Alawi, this is getting a hair bit interesting, Joe. That's Alessandro Di Tullio right up ahead of him, closing very quickly on Stephen Ash in 3rd. That gap's come down by about a second over the course of a lap.
Wonder if somebody misfueled. We've already had the white flag, though, so they're down to the end of it because Karl Modoff is coming around Ravazza right now just as the clock ticks to 0. So the 948 has been waiting for another victory, and finally one comes his way with some hard work and some incredible speed here at Italy. Herbino follows him home to 2nd. Michael Ross just behind him. Victory today for the 67, giving him his 2nd win of the season.
Looks like Boris Ovando is going to comfortably come home in 2nd, and Di Tullio's late charge will come to nothing as Stephen Ash will take that 3rd and final podium position here at Imola.
Ruiz as well, eventually getting across, but my goodness, 25 seconds behind the top two. Clearly, he was outpaced today. David Menino going to get a well-earned fourth. He was kind of quiet today, going up from seventh, but tip of the hat to him. It's going to be a tight one to the line between Watts and Eisler, but Eisler, without a qualifying lap, was only able to get up to sixth in the end. That will take us to a quick break here on the Global Sim Racing channel. We'll come back with the unofficial results as well as driver interviews. Stick around. Welcome back to Imola. We just watched round 6 in the PRL LeMans series. And up at the top of the LMP2s, Karl Modov finally claims victory and from 4th on the grid, beating his teammate on the way to it. Urbanov took 2nd place despite being on pole. Felipe Ruiz, a distant 3rd mysteriously today. David Menino was 4th with Horatio Calquin in 5th, Christian Eisler in 6th, and Owen Watts in 7th. And Di Matteo finished P8. Byron Daly climbed up 1 spot to finish 9th. Leighton took 10th, and Raymond Day, our only other driver in the LMP2s, was a DNF.
Michael Ross able to claim victory here in his Ford GT in the GTE category, followed by Boris Ovanda behind him in 2nd, and Stephen Ash recovering from some early mistakes to come home 3rd. Alessandro Di Tullio had a good late race charge, but it came to naught. He will come home 4th in class, followed by Utman Alawi and Tyler DeZube. Rafael Russo finished 7th, followed by Anthony Pisano and Mac Miller. Ted Lowendick back in 10th in class, followed by Francisco Montini. Both he and his brother had a wonderful road to lockout of the GTE field and came into some trouble early on to fall down the field. Kenny Rodriguez finished behind him, followed by David Flanagan, Brett Barrett, Jerome Bethune. The last drivers still running around the circuit, with Federico Montini and Sean Romig not finishing the race.
Well, we've got our winner with us, Karl Modov. Karl, I think it's fair to say that you were on that from the word go, jumping up to 3rd right at the start and then eventually sneaking by 2nd and taking it away from your teammate. This has got to feel like a pretty good day.
Hey, guys. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. I worked for a couple hours today trying to get the car to quit bouncing over the curbs, and I was so I couldn't get it. I couldn't cure that problem. And I drove with a lot of anger, I think, at the beginning of that race. I felt that I could have qualified better, and I haven't been performing at the level that I know I can. So I was just really determined from the green to try and get by, knowing that cold tires is going to be my best opportunity to try and get by or make some positions, just because usually this track is almost impossible to pass on. Just to get by, try and get up as high as I can at the start. And then, luckily, Christoph didn't get too big of a gap. Unfortunately for him, I think he picked up some damage, which was pretty common out there with how low this car is and the floor hitting those turtle sausage curbs. But yeah, that was a lot of fun. I'm glad to be able to come away with a win today.
And it seems like this is pretty critical inroads on catching up to Ruiz, who only managed a third out there. Considering how much more pace you had than him, it was 26 seconds at the line. Do you think you can come back from 26 points back to actually challenge him at the end of the season?
I don't know. I think anything's possible, and if we get good setups each and every week, I think we can definitely give them a run for their money, Philippe. To the end of the season. So I'm definitely going to try, since come prepared each week to try and beat him, because I'd like to win another one of these PRL championships. It's been quite a while, and same for wins. So yeah, just to kind of get the monkey off my back, this first win this season. So that's pretty exciting.
Any of the upcoming rounds, as you look at the tracks, feel like a particularly strong one for you? You think you could snatch another one of those P1s?
To be honest, I don't know the upcoming tracks. I do 3 different leagues right now, so I have so many upcoming tracks. I'm not sure even what track we're racing at next week, but I think maybe it's at Silverstone. If it is, I think I had a great race with Mauricio Cuero last season there, and I was able to come away with the win. So if that's what we're running, I'm looking forward to it, trying to repeat there.
It is indeed Silverstone next week. Well, then, we'll keep an eye out for you, Carl. Congratulations on a win. Cool.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, GSRC. Also, Michael Ross said he wasn't in Discord, but wanted to say thanks to you guys and everyone. And then also for our team, just thanks to Move Up, Free MUSA, Race Factory, United for Kids, Get Stuck, and then friends and family. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks, guys.
That was Carl Modoff, our winner here in the LMP2s. In the meantime, DJ Clark has caught up with our second place finisher in the GTEs, Boris Avondo.
Well, Boris, it was a pretty good run for you out there, but looks like you just didn't have the speed to close down on Michael Ross. But that said, some really good battles all the way through the field.
Thanks, guys. I was closing, but I knew it was just going to be too much. The gap was significant. I think it was something like 13 seconds. Finished around 8.5 seconds behind. So I clawed my way back, and I actually had some fuel left over. I had about 3 laps worth of fuel, so I'm not sure what happened there. That's about 4 seconds. So I think it would have been a really nice race with Michael. Unfortunately, I didn't qualify very well, and I got stuck in a couple of incidents, and that's how it went.
Yeah, it was a little bit of an uncharacteristic qualifying for you, I have to say. I mean, what was going on? I know how tricky this track can be. Was it just a matter of keeping it between the lines, or just not able to find that single lap pace?
I think the change in temperature maybe affected me a little bit. I was practicing in lower temperatures, and it was, I think, 26 during the qualifying. I think that might have something to do with it. And actually, I think I may have just been pushing too hard. But I still, good result despite the bad qualifying.
Well, I guess looking forward, championships starting to come into clearer focus. How do you feel about this battle shaping up? Do you think you can take the fight here?
I'm going to try my best. It was unfortunate to see Udman, that incident. He was doing really well, and I think that hurt his chances quite a bit. But I think we're going to go to some tracks where the Porsche is going to be a little bit stronger, and hopefully he can claw his way back up, because I think he definitely has a chance. I don't think I have a chance, but I'm still going to continue to battle.
I got to say, I love that attitude from you, man. Before we let you go tonight, anybody you need to thank?
As always, just want to thank the team. Also, G Performance, owner Miroslav, just wishing that he gets better. And just thank you to his support.
Well, thank you, and congratulations again, Boris, on a well-earned second place. And now Joe Peak has caught up with our third place GTE finisher, Stephen Ash.
Yes, Stephen, a podium here today, and that's going to be important considering you're trying to chase down the likes of Alawi, which you are going to at least gain points over him. But how would you assess your performance, especially considering it didn't look like it was completely perfect out there?
Yeah, how's it going, guys? Today was a pretty crazy race, to be honest. There was cars flying left and right, and yeah, it was a really difficult track. Not a lot of grip out there today. The setup wasn't exactly where my teammate Mac and I wanted it to be, but we made do, and pretty pleased to come out with a third place, especially after the little half spin I had.
How was that traffic? Because we watched a race with the GTEs and the LMP2s last night that was just madness, and this felt incredibly tame in comparison. But obviously, you don't have that comparison. So, what was it like from inside the Porsche?
Yeah, to be honest, I thought it was pretty reckless out there today. There was, not putting the blame on anyone, but there was contact all over the place, and Montini ahead of me got taken out by an LMP2, and they were sending it left and right. So it was really, really difficult out there today. But yeah, I just tried to keep my nose clean and happy with the result.
Now, you are sitting on 1 win compared to Alawi and Ross, who both have 2. Do those sort of stats stick in your mind? Do you kind of think to yourself, I've got to try and keep up with them in that sense? Or is it purely a points numbers game?
Yeah, not really. I mean, wins are obviously maximum points, but the last 2 tracks haven't really been my forte per se. So I'm just trying to nail some good points while I'm at my tough tracks, and then we got some good ones for me coming up. I think might be Canada next week, which I'm really good at. So hopefully I can pick up a win or something else there.
Well, we are looking forward to seeing how you fare there. Congratulations. Is there anybody you'd like to thank for the podium today?
Yeah, I just like to shout out the team and say thanks to FSR, my teammate Mac Miller, my boy Big Bobber, and Joaquim. And yeah, FSR, diamond hands to the moon, baby. Let's go.
That was Stephen Ash taking a 3rd place here today at Imola, but that wraps up our interviews. So we're going to give a thank you to the sponsors ourselves. Of course, Simulation Motorsports Affinity kicks it off with SIMMSA.net if you want to see how you can get involved with the world of sim racing. And then if you are someone who likes to trade, don't forget about NinjaTrader. They are simply at NinjaTrader.com. And then if you have a sim rig that you want to fancy up, Butt Kicker products might be up your alley. They are simply at thebuttkicker.com. Thanks to the companies that provide the software and the hardware for our broadcast listed here on your screen. Additional thanks go to June Lalonde, who provides our wonderful music. Her Bandcamp is listed there at the bottom. But thanks to the team today, DJ, Sean, and Dougie. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com. There's also our social media outlets where we're constantly active. At GSR Channel is our Twitter. Facebook is Global Sim Racing Channel. And GSRC_Graham is our Instagram. If you'd like to support us, we've got a merchandise store at gsrc.storenv.com. We'll get a link in the YouTube description down below to make it nice and easy just to click that, and it'll take you right there. The next race, as we mentioned, is heading to Silverstone. It'll be Tuesday, February 9th at 9 p.m. Eastern. But we also have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out and mark them down on your calendar. But up next, we've got the Turn 2.0 Flying Huskies going to Circuit of the Americas at 11:30 p.m. Eastern, so it'll be up shortly. Until next time, race clean, race hard. See you on the track.